Hello, I'm Jonathan Kleid with the Kleid Design Group of Oakland, California. Welcome to the Killen Report. For many of you that view this show regularly, you know that we speak and have subject matter on diverse issues such as global warming, art issues, climate change, and the environment. Well, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to be talking about the environment, but we're going to be talking about your environment, your home environment, and what goes into that as far as interior design. And I have a wonderful special guest today. I have Darlene Jurow of Jurow Design Associates. And she is an internationally acclaimed interior designer with many, many years of experience. She is the past president of the Northern California chapter of the American Society of Interior Designers and also served on their national board, as well as being on the advisory board of the Textile Arts Council of the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco, which include the De Young and the Palace of the Legion of Honor. Darlene Jurow, welcome to the Killen Report.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm delighted to be here. This is wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're here. We've got so much to talk about. And what I'd like to try to get across to the audience today are some tidbits on design and interior design from your point of view.
Excellent.
Which you have so much experience. So let's just dive right in. Let's talk about some trends in design, what you're seeing, what might be going on in design, in color, in materials. What's going on in design
Excellent,
right now?
excellent. Trends are great, but in order to understand what is trendy and what is not, one has to actually understand what constitutes good design. Good design is made up of harmony, balance, texture, comfort, proportion, and a great load of spirit, none of which is trendy. These are absolutes. In order to add a little bit of flair, depending on the year, the time, one goes into adding a bit of color. Today, it's the epitomous gray wall. And adding a touch of apricot, of pink, of orange, of a warm tone to everybody's gray and white rooms seems to be very much in vogue. Color spans the gamut from lights to darks, and there are preferences for people, but lights are very popular today. We're going with a lot of light color, whereas people painted their walls red or navy blue or even black at one point. Now we're going for lighter color walls, not just gray. We're adding a rose color wall or a yellow-green color wall, a popular color, interestingly enough, coming back from the 50s.
Interesting. So let me ask you, because you were talking about color palette, is there a difference between a West Coast color palette and an East Coast color palette? Does the kind of light that an area has influence what kind of color that one may choose as an interior designer?
It does. It does. And if you're talking about coastal colors, you're talking basically about a very sophisticated palette. If you're talking southern part of the United States, they have an entirely different modus operandi, and in the Midwest, again. On the coast, clients seem to change their environment a little more often. Some people change it every 2 years, some people change it every 5 years. We love working with them as often as we can. And the colors do change, but they vary slowly.
Interesting. So you had mentioned the word when you were speaking, trends. And is there a difference of, or how would you categorize like trendy versus classic?
Oh, I do hear you. Yeah.
How does that play?
Classic is always in vogue. There's never a time when a classic room isn't elegant. Trends come up a lot in the change of environment and change of even politics. in our country. People tend to want to, the word is hygge in Danish, get cozy, get comfortable, and have an environment that's warm and inviting and secure. I think secure has a lot to do with it, and so they choose a warm palette. Sometimes when people feel a little freer, a little more comfortable with what's going on in the world, they change their color palette again.
So with your clientele and with what you know of your colleagues, do you find, because, as you said, in the West Coast, people tend to change their environments a little bit more often than others places, do you find that people on the coast go more in a trendy manner? What do you
Well,
find?
trendy, again, only refers to picking up colors that are popped out by magazines, the color societies of America, even websites that come up with different colors. And again, they vary. They vary in areas of the country. They vary in what's going on with the environment and how often people really choose to have a new design.
So all of this points to the aesthetic part of design, but there's also the functional part of design.
We're going into remodel now.
Well, we're going into functionality versus aesthetic and how that gets balanced out.
Jonathan, it's not a verse. It's not an either or. It's an and. It's got to be an and. If it doesn't function, no matter how beautiful it is, it doesn't work. And that brings in the question of lighting. If you don't have good lighting, and lighting has just had a resurgence of new opportunities today. And if it doesn't function well and you can't see it, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. So it's got to work, it's got to be well lit, and then you can get into personal design. And design is personal. It's personal, no matter what I feel in terms of creating an aesthetic in a room. If the client isn't happy with it, it doesn't work. It's all personal.
So you talked about lighting, and I know that you're kind of an expert in that aspect as well. Is there a particular time of day that you light a room for? How do you deal with lighting?
Now we're getting very technical, but I'm glad you asked, because as far as being an expert, I'm only smart enough to hire the experts.
Okay.
And they are very good and very up on what's going on with the new LEDs, with the new daylighting, with shades that now are all remote and daylight automatically. You go out to work in the morning and these shades go up, they go down, depending on where the sun is setting. They've got a mind of their own. It's brilliant. And you can also operate these remotely as you're leaving the home or as you're coming back to the home. We light the house for when the client is home. So it depends whether they're stay at home, whether they work at home, whether they work away from home, how often they're home, and which direction their office, whether it be a home office or a working office or just a place for children to do their homework, where that is located. What direction does that look? And then we decide how we're going to light it, what type of window coverings we're going to have. Rooms need 3 types of lighting. They need an overhead lighting for ambience, they need a task lighting on their desk, and then they need a mid-level lighting. So when they walk in the room, there's no glare in their eye, but there's pathway entrance and exits.
Now that's interesting. I've often heard it said people go to parties at night and they love lighting when they look 20 years younger.
Oh, well, who doesn't?
I think that's it. You know,
maybe a 20-year-old
maybe
wouldn't.
a 20-year-old who would look like they're 2.
Right.
You know, we also deal a lot, obviously, from my point of view and also yours as well, with built-in cabinetry and how that plays into design and how much is enough in a room. From your point of view, do you think? If there's...
Oh, I think it depends on the scale of the room. The cabinetry, as with the furniture, has got to fit the scale of the room. But built-in cabinetry is such a luxury, Jonathan. I mean, to have something built in with furniture grade built in, so it looks like it has always been there, it's indigenous to the house, is not only a luxury, but it's an elegant item to add.
I would agree with that. And do you welcome, when you're working with clients, do you welcome their involvement, or do you prefer that clients are hands off because they've chosen you for your skill set?
Another good question.
Yeah.
But now you're getting personal
Okay,
here.
all right.
It's
just the two of us.
Yes, we're
Nobody
talking
else is here.
personal.
Yeah. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
There are clients that like to be hands-on, like to be there with all the meetings with the contractors and the architects, like to be there to decide what size screw go in the wall. That's fine. That's wonderful. Their input is good because then we know they're going to be happy with the choices. There are also clients that say, I really don't know too much about this. If I give you my plans and I go to Europe for a month, can I come back and see it done? I happen to be working with one of those now, and it's just a joy. He trusts the people he's hired implicitly, and he's willing to go off and come back and be surprised. On a previous job, he did go off on his many travels. He came back, and I didn't like the way the dining room chair seats were being frayed. I had them all recovered. He walked in. He was so excited, so happy. The client like that is just a pleasure, but we're willing to work both ways.
Got it. And is there a time that you wonder, or how do you know if a project is a good fit when you're working with somebody? What do you think?
A good fit between our offices and the client would be determined basically by the client. We're very malleable. We will work on many different levels. If the client likes what we have to offer, it makes it easy. If the client is not sure, which happens very often, what they like and what they don't like, it makes it a little harder. We work a little harder. Sometimes they want to take a little more time, and that's fine. That's fine. But showing a client 10 different sofas, 10 different anythings, doesn't necessarily make the client a happier client. They need to work this out and then come back to us.
And I'm assuming when you work with a couple, they have to work that out too, because
you'd be
you
surprised.
don't do marriage therapy.
You'd be surprised. Yeah. It's 10% design, sometimes 90% psychology.
That's like, exactly. No, I understand that. So what do you find, and this is a hard question, I understand, but what do you find most challenging in designing a room or an entire home? What are your thoughts briefly about that area from your own point of view, or maybe some of your colleagues have expressed certain challenges that they find also?
Well, we're always up against deadlines, whether it's our deadlines, the client's deadlines, the freight company's deadlines, the shipping deadlines. I think our biggest challenge really is making deadlines happen. There are times when we've ordered custom-made furniture from Europe and we have to tell the client that the boat sank. I know, it's absurd, but it happens. We've had to tell clients that there was a snowstorm in the Midwest and they weren't going to get their furniture because the trucks didn't get through. In one case, we had to tell them there was a fire in the warehouse. All gone, we had to start from scratch.
So it's managing those expectations.
Oh my gosh, it's the unexpected, but we expect the unexpected.
Absolutely. Well, I love, we can talk for hours about this, but I think it's going to be helpful to maybe give some examples through some photographs.
Oh, I'd love to look at photographs.
Which I think will help, and we can sort of articulate a little bit on each photograph and give some examples of work and what makes this important when we've got some photographs up. So we'll just wait to hear that we have them available to us, and then we can go from there. So as soon as they come up, while we're waiting for the first photograph, which is up right now, I understand. So can you talk about the first photograph?
This is a high-rise in the financial district in San Francisco. And our concept in furnishing it was to keep the scale commensurate with the size of the room and that fabulous view outside. It's just incredible. So the furniture is very clean lined. Sleek is in. The room is amazing. We have seating in 3 different areas, 1 major, 1 small, 1 dining area.
I see. Okay. And that'll lead us then to the next photograph, which we can take a look at. And that'll come up in just a moment, and we'll be able to see what's going on
Good.
there.
Another view of the same condominium in the same high-rise. This is done a little later at night, so you can see it's darker outside, but the lights are just scintillating. It also serves as an art gallery for this couple.
Great. And then moving forward, we'll have another one to view. And this actually is a photograph of a home. And these cabinets replaced 2 sheetrock walls that were dividing a hallway and a living room. And then it gave them a whole lot of area to display what they wanted with regard to their own art and ceramic work, which is terrific. And the center area, which is clear, leads then to the hallway. And we can actually see, I think, the next photograph will, I think, show a bit more detail of what's going on here. And here is an example of lighting. I think, Darlene, that when you said how important lighting really is to any project, and this is a very dramatic.
If you can't see it, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is.
Exactly. And then the final photograph of this series, I believe, shows the back side of those cabinets, and you can even see that there's great detail going on. It's not divided as greatly as the front, but it's something that your eye will catch.
That's very clever, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I think that that will be great. So moving forward to the next photograph, let's see what we've got here. Another living room. This is a living room where we've just using part of the wall, and we've got closed areas and open areas, and it's very diverse. So that's one example. And if we go to the next photograph, I think we'll see, again, this is looking out from the dining room to a sunken living room, and rather than having the 1970s oak balustrades and wrought iron, which was sort of that time,
That's gone.
It's all sleeked up. People can do something like this to keep their safety and also to display.
Well, sleek is in. As I said, it's not only a sleek piece of work, but it does give a lot of openness to the entire space.
Exactly. And as we move to the next photograph, we'll see just sort of at the lower corner of the picture how something gets cut into stairs when it's very artistically
stairs
done.
In the front of that?
In the front of it.
Front lower?
Yeah, and that's what that is. And it's just neat when you really can deal with something that's artistic in that sense.
And so custom.
And so custom as right. And our next photograph, we'll take a look at. You know, it's interesting, Darlene, I'm sure you've found this to be the case as well, that many new complexes and many new homes have a lot of alcoves in them. And alcoves can be furnished with a piece of furniture, or they can be furnished with built-ins, that the space is filled by cabinetry, as we can take a look at the next photograph. And we'll see that closer. And we can see that while there are floor-to-ceiling alcoves, you don't have to do everything the same. You can have something that's floor to ceiling and something that is not floor to ceiling.
That's true. And open spaces in rooms have become much more desirable. So builders are building half walls instead of full walls.
Correct.
So the space stays open, which lends itself perfectly to your built-in cabinetry.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll go to the next photograph, which again is a head-on shot, but it illustrates what you can do with open areas. You can close it up, as you see on the left of the fireplace, or you can keep it open as just with doing something partially to fill an alcove space.
And adding lighting to those alcoves,
right,
either on the top or straight down and in between the shelves, makes it pop that much more.
Absolutely. So we'll go on to our next photograph. And again, this is the same room from a different angle. But you're right with regard to how much lighting was done in this room
Very
by
important.
others. Yeah, very, very important. As we move forward, we will see another example of just open space. And so what do you do with that space? We'll be able to see that through the next photograph as we pull it up.
So
and
this
we
is
fill
the
it.
after picture
This is the
of the
after.
one before.
Right. Maybe I'm wondering if we can go back to the first picture, just the one before it.
Oh, the before,
The before, and then
the
let's take us
after.
back to the after. There you go. So you can actually see.
What a difference.
Well, it makes it, you know what, part of the whole idea of the design work is to make a real transformation.
Well, you did here.
And you do it, and that's...
This looks so custom.
It's, well, absolutely. You can't, yeah, this is not, you can't get this off the shelf.
Nope.
Our next photograph will take a look at a bedroom. Would you?
Another high-rise in the San Francisco area. Again, spectacular views. We wanted to keep it open. We've got draperies that will close electrically at night. There will be absolutely no light leaks because we have 2 levels of draperies. It's a custom-made bed. It includes the headboard and the night tables, all one piece, and all of it floats off the floor.
That's great. Can we go to our next photograph, please?
Another custom bed in another high-rise in San Francisco, and this was for 2 children, and the room is small, so we built in the beds, the drawer storage space. In the center console, there is electrical with a little hole that drops through, so there is a little light back there with no wires hanging out.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful design.
Clever concept.
It is. This bedroom also is in a private home, and it also has to do with the use of filling alcoves for their need. There was nothing going on. It was basically wasted space. So what do you do? It's great to be able to have storage in a place that you can keep it out of the footprint of the room, which is great. Moving to the next photograph we'll show.
Another bedroom. This is in the East Bay. It's a transitional bedroom. It incorporates a mirrored chest, very traditional piece, more contemporary brass headboard, some artwork, and a few accessories.
That's great. The next photograph will show us examples just of home offices in smaller spaces. There's actually an attic ladder in here that we had to work around so that everything clears. And if we go to the next photograph.
Home offices are so prevalent today. There's almost not a home built without one.
You know what? It's true, especially people are telecommuting and they're working at home. And then just the idea on the next photograph, if we can even in small spaces, 2 people can work relatively comfortably. So I think that's a really important thing, that you don't have to have a lot of space to do a lot.
No, and it's nice to set it up for 2 people, even if there aren't 2 people at this time, because a lot of clients like their computer in one area and their workspace in another.
Exactly, and we'll show the final photograph from this group, which is sort of a Japanese tansu-esque play, but just a very elegant way to have file storage.
Well, I love the way the top is stepped.
Yes, exactly. That's the tansu aspect of it.
Very nice.
Moving to the next photograph, again with home offices, not huge spaces, but again certainly plenty for 2 people to work. And the next photograph will show us another view of this. It's very open, even though it's a small space, which are great. The next photograph I think we're going to go into just even things like custom entertainment centers. Again, sleek, elegant. It gives the room a larger look going from floor to ceiling.
A lot of place for storage.
A lot of place for storage. In our next photograph, just kitchens. And we can do the next photograph as well to show you don't have to have square patterns or rectangular patterns. You can have islands that have form to them, as well as the next photograph will show the entire concept, this being more of a craftsman concept with a little bit of a modern twist to it. Moving forward, This is...
I talk about islands with form. This is a soapstone countertop, slate floor, maple cabinets, and a lot of glass with a vaulted ceiling. There's lighting on top of the vaulted ceiling in the middle. As you can see, there's a pendant that hangs down. Then there's lighting over the cabinets on the far left, and there's lighting over on the front side under the cabinets that you can't see very well, but it's there. And the soapstone countertop was manufactured in San Francisco and installed here, and it is definitely freeform. There is no name to that shape, but it made a spectacular kitchen.
That's fantastic. Do you know, I've been having such a good time. Do you know we have less than 2 minutes?
No!
I know. I know that color is so important.
Oh, Jonathan,
I want you to
since
talk...
you value the aspect of color, I would love to tell you a little story.
Tell me a little story, but let's tell it to me quickly
This is a book called The Secret Lives of Color that I picked up at the museum in San Francisco, and it talks about the story of colors.
We have 1 minute.
Nobody asked me about puce, ever. Have you heard of puce? Do you know what puce is? Well, I don't either. I assumed you didn't. I didn't. Marie Antoinette wore a gown in 1775. She's 20 years old, and she's extravagant as they come. And she wore a gown that her husband, Louis XVI, said, no, no, madam, this is way too extravagant. And so he called it puce, the color of fleas.
I love that.
It became very popular. He called it fleas because it was a combination of brown, pink, and gray.
Wow.
That's puce.
That's how it
and
came.
she took it with her when she was taken to prison.
Oh my goodness, that is a great story. It is so good to have you on. We are so thankful that you gave the insights that you did with all of your experience. It is really a pleasure to have you here. We hope you'll come back and visit. And it has been great. Darlene Jurow, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm Jonathan Kleid, the Kleid Design Group. For this edition of the Killen Report, thank you for joining us.